Okay, so I've never had the privilege of speaking in a venue this technically advanced, and so just have to bear with me here. It's a real privilege to address you all, and I thought what I'd do is just provide you just sort of our experience. So we wanted to kind of capture this junior leader in innovation thing in the submarine force, and so what I want to do is just, before we flip any slides, I'm just going to talk for a little while. And then I've got a short presentation that just kind of outlines our journey in this junior leader innovation thing and how we're moving forward with that. So again, Admiral Kraft, thanks very much for having me here. Is this sound okay? Is this working for the room? More closer to my mouth. Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm watching all the comments in the DCO chat, and it's like, hey, he's overdriving it. No, now he's underdriving it. No, now it's better. Okay, right there. So just kind of feed me back, and then who looks really honest here? You right there, okay? If anybody in the DCO chat room starts to say that my talk stinks, you're gonna have to raise your hand, and I'll try and take it up a notch or something. But I always worry about these chat rooms because it gets pretty honest there. They're starting to talk already about the relevance of the aircraft carrier, Admiral Kraft. So there's some comments already in there. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for coming. I know that your schedules are really busy, and for those of you who couldn't make it in person and sent your avatar or something, I appreciate that. Let me tell you a quick vignette to show you kind of where we are in some ways. I went to a Navy course one time, and it was a really, really good course. I won't tell you which one, but overall the course was fantastic. And when we came into the course, on our desk, when we all piled in, kind of like you did, there was a stack of stuff. There's a briefcase that they gave us for the course, which is really nice. And then there was some books, which was great. It was kind of one of these leadership courses. And then there was an iPod on the top of the pile. And what was really interesting is underneath the iPod was this like 6-page, stapled together pile of papers. And you look in that pile of papers, and here's the iPod. It's in its brand new case, and they'd actually loaded it up with some business books and that sort of thing. And then the Navy felt the need to provide us with the 6-page Navy instruction manual on how to use the iPod, which I thought was really kind of a good cultural indication of sometimes how we're dealing with stuff. So here's a device. First of all, they've sold probably billions of these things by now, certainly millions of these iPods, and you could take this thing and drop it out of an aircraft into the middle of the Kalahari Desert, and before you know it, those folks would pick it up, and it's just so intuitive that they'd be downloading music and listening to it in no time without any instructions at all, right? And so, but here we were with this 6-page kind of manual on how to use it. That little arrow, that means play, and all those sorts of things. It was hysterical, and so it sort of got me thinking about how we might be missing an opportunity to really kind of harness what's out there. So that started this moving forward. And it was an idea planted in my mind when I got to this job. So as we move through this talk, as much as possible, I want to make this kind of a conversation, sort of an audience participation thing. And so if you see something or you want to ask a question, just raise your hand. And I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as possible and leave a lot of time for questions at the end as well. And I know on DCO you got that little raise your hand button too. So somebody would just be my DCO translator right down in here. So if somebody raises their hand and has a question on DCO, do you have a way to do that? Okay, great. So we got somebody up here. Okay. I want to talk about innovation, but I think we have to, in these days, go beyond just pure innovation, right? We don't have a blank slate. Certainly we don't have an unlimited budget. And so where we've kind of concentrated our ideas and our efforts in the submarine force version is to try and capture those ideas that have a lot of payoff, high return on as low an investment as possible. And I want to talk to you about how we've done that as we go through this. Okay, one thing about our situation that I think is important to realize is that if you go back through a lot of our military history and you think about how new technologies and new ideas have moved forward, it kind of followed a pattern where, the new thing, the new idea, the new technology, the advanced piece of gear was usually developed in sort of the defense labs, right? DARPA, ONR, those sorts of places. And generally that technology was classified early on because it had these direct military applications. And so it would just be confined to a small group of users in the military, and then gradually over time it would be declassified to a larger group within the military as that technology became more and more used, and then out to the private sector when it would, at an appropriate period of time. So it started in government labs, highly classified, and moved out. So government kind of had the lead, and private sector was following at an appropriate period of time. I think right now I would argue that we're seeing in many areas a shift. And certainly in a lot of the business we're doing in submarine systems, where it's the private sector that is leading with new ideas and often with new technologies. And it's the military who is kind of in the follow relationship. And so that shift, I think, has a lot of profound implications for us and for this group in particular. And I want to just kind of explore that a little bit more as we go. But it certainly requires our processes to be more agile, right? So whereas we could kind of set the timeline before, because it was all ours, it was our idea, it was classified, we'd roll this out according to at a timeline that suited us. Now, if we're going to keep up with a lot of this private sector innovation, it's our processes have to kind of move at the private sector pace, right? And you're all familiar with a lot of those. I mean, Moore's Law, right? Computing power doubles every 18 months. And there's other kind of corollaries to that, like Moore's Law for storage, right? How much you can get on a disk or a flash drive, that kind of doubles every 9 months. So it's even on a faster track than processing power. And you can see that these, the commercial generations are very, very short, whereas your smartphone, version 1 is issued today. How much longer before they're going to issue smartphone 2? I mean, what do you normally see? What do you think? Somebody speak up. What's that?
8 months.
I mean, yeah, 8 months is what you said. A year or so, 18 months is really kind of getting long, right? People are saying, you're starting to get obsolete at the 18-month point if you don't have a fresh version of something coming out. Some of that is driven by commercialism, right? They need to make a profit. But some of it's driven because the technology just changes that way. In many ways in this area, if we don't change our processes, if we don't become more agile, we're giving our enemies a march in this area, right? So in many ways, they are paying a lot cheaper for the labor. They're paying a lot less for labor than we are. They are not as constrained to environmental regulation and other legal strictures. And so we need to make sure that we're kind of keeping pace with them as well. Certainly, information security plays a role here. You've all read the accounts where, some kind of a computer worm is going to get into some defense contractor or government system, and then it's like, a monster export of data out of that. And, many of our enemies have not only the will, but also the technical competence and the capacity to just put all that together. And what we have spent a tremendous amount on in our research and development, they benefit from that for free because they just piece it all together. And some of the mechanisms that we've historically used to declassify that, right? Hey, these 2 pages, if you just isolate them, they're unclassified. But if you combine these 2 pages with these other 2 pages in this other document and maybe this PowerPoint brief, that all of which are unclassified separately, that starts to look a little bit classified or very classified. We can't assume that they're not connecting those dots. They have a lot of people. They probably have the equivalent population of the United States, hundreds of millions, just focused on this problem alone, right? So the dots will be connected. The data will be exfiltrated. And so we have to do all of this in a secure manner as well. Okay, the other idea I want to pitch out to you as you get started here is innovation doesn't always involve, new technology. Okay, in many ways, the most effective revolutions in military affairs were not the invention of a new piece of technology, but really the creative application or the creative combination of current technologies. Okay, so there'll be some people who are going to come up later on that are a lot more read in history than I am. But if you think about one revolution that's cited fairly often is blitzkrieg, the whole concept of blitzkrieg and maneuver warfare, right? The problem that faced ground warfare was, in World War I, we got into the trenches and we never really got out. And so how are we going to avoid, another trench warfare where there was just no maneuver? And the Germans got to work on this very soon in the interwar period, and they practiced it a ton, right? And there was no new technology involved in that. It was just a creative combination of an airplane and a radio and a tank. And they stitched those all together and practiced it both in Germany, then down in Spain, and in a number of different areas. And it was that idea, that combination of current technologies in a unique way that led to that idea of blitzkrieg, which was so dominant in World War II. Another area where the Allies dominated was in the Battle of Britain. And so if you look at just the raw technology of radars at the time, the Germans, as has been the case often, had better radars. They had better technology. But it was the British who really kind of stitched together all of their coastal defense radars into a network that was allow them to respond with the Spitfires to any kind of incoming threat. And so whereas Germany continued to operate individual radars sort of site by site, the British networked them together to that home defense system, which allowed them to prevail in the Battle of Britain. So again, it's not always about the new idea, the new piece of technology. Often the best and most effective ideas come about by just stitching together the current technologies in a more creative way. Similarly, let's not confine ourselves to new weapon systems. Okay, that's certainly much of what our business is about. But I think that the real power of this group is that we're all kind of going through our day-to-day paces on board the ship or in the squadron or wherever we are, right? Submarine, whatever it is. And you know that as you do that, how many of you have been sort of frustrated that, hey, if we only kind of did business a little bit smarter, maybe had a new application, that my day would be a lot easier. That I'm doing things that at home I can do a lot easier with the machine. How many people have felt that way? That they're just, it's been inefficient. Nobody up here? You guys are all pretty good? All right. I felt that way. And I think that, there's a lot of sort of blocking and tackling things that we could do a lot more efficiently. That would be much more appropriate if a machine or a computer or something did some of those things instead of us kind of doing it ourselves. It's sort of like taking a man sled to the South Pole, right? You can get it done that way, but it's probably the hardest possible way to do it. All right, and it's very manpower intensive.